We changed our minds when we found out we'd have to go through the Russian sector. And how come you came with me on this trip to Canada?"
Merrill shook his head and resumed his trek.
"'Cause I'm your friend, dipstick."
He hiked in silence for several moments.
"Sorry I got on you about the map," Emerson said. "You should be. Look, I'm trying to apologize. You're treating me like dirt." "No, I'm treating you like a chump. There's a difference." "I'm a chump. We both are," Merrill stated bitterly. "We've always been chumps. From the day we were born in run-down shacks near what's left of Duluth, we've been busting our butts to get ahead. And what's all our efforts gotten us? Nothing. Zip. Clothes on our backs and our guns. That's it. We're still friends after all these years." "Yeah. When we were kids, living within a half mile of one another, I never figured I'd be seeing your ugly mug every day 20 years later." "Don't you want to be friends any longer?" Merrill gazed at the western horizon. "What I want is to find a place to bed down for the night. We got about 2 hours of daylight left." "There's plenty of time." "There you go again." "What am I doing?" "Being your usual disgustingly optimistic self." In short order, they came to the forest and discovered a game trail winding in the direction they were heading. "Let's take it," Emerson proposed. An eerie hush enveloped the pair as they wound amongst the trees. No insect sounds could be heard, and the birds, if there were any, were strangely silent. Even the breeze was silent. "This is spooky. Maybe there's a bear or a bobcat in the vicinity. Maybe there's a mutation." The dreaded word made Merrill stroke the trigger on his rifle nervously. He despised the vile genetic abominations, so prevalent since the nuclear holocaust, and the mere thought of a two-headed wolf or an enormous snake lurking in the undergrowth gave him goosebumps. He couldn't begin to imagine what life had been like prior to the war, before the radiation and the chemicals had polluted the environment and deranged the wildlife. Once, in International Falls, he'd spoken to a man who claimed the warping of the ecological chain meant all future generations would have to contend with a world overrun by mutants, which was a disheartening scenario if ever there was one. "This game trail might lead us to water," Emerson commented. Merrill nodded. Game trails usually did, sooner or later, lead to water. The animals used the trails like ancient men and women had once used their roads and highways. "We must be in northern Minnesota," Emerson mentioned. "That'd be my guess," Merrill concurred. Their swing into Canadian territory, which they'd entered near Fort Francis, had taken them northward, around the Lake of the Woods, then to the west, encompassing hundreds of miles in 3 months. And all for nothing. Their search for an inhabited Canadian metropolis had been fruitless. No, they'd found a few towns inhabited by trappers and hunters, but not the utopian city they were seeking. If Emerson had had his way, they'd still be looking. The dummy had wanted them to try and push on to Winnipeg, but Merrill had put his foot down and refused to continue. "I don't want to sleep in these woods," Emerson stated nervously. "Then you'd better hope we get out of these trees before nightfall," Merrill said. In a quarter of a mile, they did. The forest abruptly ended at the edge of a field. Beyond the field, in an oval configuration aligned from north to south, was a small lake, its deep blue surface tranquil, the sunlight shimmering on the water. "Fish for supper," Emerson declared. "We'll camp right next to the lake," Merrill said, then glanced to the right. "What the hell?" "What?" Emerson responded, looking around. Not 30 feet away, situated close to the trees, was an old log cabin, its roof and glass windows still intact. "Will you look at that?" Merrill exclaimed happily. "Suppose someone lives out there?" "There's only one way to find out." They approached the structure warily, circling to the front on the south side, their rifles trained on the closed door. "I doubt anyone's lived there in years, maybe since the war," Merrill speculated. "If it's empty, we can spend the night inside." "Open the door." "You open it." "What's the matter, you chicken?" "No." "Not in the woods anymore." "Meaning what?" "Meaning you're having a bad attack of nerves, and the best way for you to get over the willies is to go open the damn door." "All right, I'll cover you." Okay, don't rush me." Emerson edged closer and closer to the cabin, his eyes flicking over the 2 windows, one to the right and the other to the left.